As part of the National Development Plan, South Africa aims to award 100,000 PhDs by 2030. I'm joined on the line by UNISA's College of Education Executive Dean, Professor Kuzvinetsa Zvimbo, to speak about the feasibility of this. Thanks for joining us, Professor. Now, as it stands, South Africa is awarding 1,800 PhDs a year, and that needs to be upped to 6,000 if we want to meet our 100,000 goal by 2030. Tell us, is this feasible for South Africa?
Yes, it is feasible, but I want to state that the only way to do it is to change our model of training people at the master's and doctoral level. My own hunch is that as a country, we adopted an old British model of training people at the master's and doctoral level. This is a model in which a master's or a doctoral student is left to hear on with the assistance of one or two supervisors. This model, to me, is not suitable for the South African or even the African context. The model that I think will help us achieve this goal is a model in which we actually have a taught master's degree and a taught PhD. At the moment, the DHET does not fund us more for a taught master's or a taught PhD. We don't even do a taught PhD. So a taught master's is discouraged. And I think we ought to look at the American model, we ought to look at the German model, and we ought to look at the British model, and then develop a South African model, but one in which students for the master's degree and for the PhD, they actually take courses. For a master's degree, they should take a course for 1 year, in my view, and for a PhD, they should take a course at least for 2 years. That course will be in research methods, that course will be in theories in their discipline, that course will be an in-depth study of their discipline before they go and collect research data for their research project. That way, we then lock our students so that they actually have got more time to concentrate on their studies and finish. But also, what we can do to accelerate the training of PhD students and master students is to do what UNISA is doing right now. Those people that work at UNISA and do not have a PhD, they are given 3 years to go and concentrate full-time on a PhD. I think if that model is accentuated nationally, I think we will be able to meet this target. Thank you.
Professor, as it stands, our PhD candidates are dependent on supervisors. Now, assuming that this model doesn't change, do we have enough supervisors in South Africa to help facilitate 6,000 PhDs every year?
That's a good point. One of the things that we're trying to do now is to ensure that we don't have a model in which only one academic supervises a student. We are now suggesting that we should look at the American model, which has got a doctoral committee. So that doctoral committee, say at UNISA, could even have somebody from the University of Pretoria, another person from the University of Johannesburg, so that we have at least 3 people supervising a student. But nowadays, with the use of information and communication technologies, we could even have a supervisor who is not even located in this country. We could have a supervisor located in Kenya or a supervisor located in Brazil, for instance, supervising our students, as long as we make sure that those people have got the right qualifications to supervise at the doctoral level and in a particular discipline.
Now, South Africa obviously wants to have these 100,000 PhDs by 2030. Can you speak to us about why it's important for South Africa to have a broad base of PhD candidates?
Excellent question. If this country is to increase its competitiveness in terms of our productivity, whether it is in the public sector or even in the private sector, we have to have a large pool of people that are trained at the PhD level. Remember, nowadays, when we measure the wealth of nations, it is not the resources that we have on the ground. It is the number and quality of the knowledge workers that we have. That's how we measure the wealth of nations nowadays. In particular, in this country, if we want to develop a knowledge society, then we must have a large pool of people who have got PhDs and master's degrees in particular, who can then be responsible for research that will make our nation and our people competitive globally and competitive regionally and even competitive nationally. We cannot do that with a very small number of people with PhD. To be able to move towards a knowledge society, we need to have a large pool of people that produce research, both basic and applied. We have to have a large pool of people with PhD that can work in our industry so that we can be very competitive. So that will be the answer to that. Thank you.
Professor, are there specific disciplines in South Africa especially that require PhD candidates, or is it fair to say that every discipline needs to have PhD candidates?
I think the answer to that question is that every discipline, whether we're talking science and technology, whether we're talking the social sciences, will need people with PhDs.